Welcome back to another episode of Drum Nomad. Today I'm joined by Sean Lane of Pedro the Lion Silver Torches.
Yeah.
Several torches.
Silver torches.
And solo artist and music retail extraordinaire.
Yeah, right on.
Thank you for having me in your home down in Tacoma.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Beautiful little cul-de-sac.
Yep, it's quiet.
And it's super rad because the lady you bought the house from hasn't touched it since like 1964-ish.
Yeah, she was the second owner, but the house was built in 1960. I think lived here with her family since like 63, 64. And yeah, it's frozen in time.
Even though like when we were I was walking back to get the mic stands out of my car, we looked at that fire alarm system.
Yeah, there's this built-in midnight detection fire alarm,
which is the coolest name, that like midnight alarm system.
Yeah, it's I think it's from the 50s. Yeah. So I would imagine maybe whoever lived here was a firefighter or something, and probably there's these little bells in all the rooms of the whole house. There's one on the outside of the house.
Oh wow.
So,
it's
pre 911.
Yeah, pre 911.
So
we met again. Firstly, we met in 2015 at the Chicago Drum Show.
Yep, with Kepi.
Yeah, Gregg Keplinger, drum builder, and I told you, I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna be on vacation in the middle of summer. We should try to meet up." And you were like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
And with no announcement, I walked from the middle of Seattle all the way out to the Trading Musician, and you were there, and you're like, "Oh my God, dude, it's the one shift I work a week," and you just happened to stop by.
That was great.
That was wild.
Yeah.
So now here we are, 2019, and I met you again at the shop the other day.
Mm-hmm.
So you were telling me that this is kind of like the first slow month you've had in a while to kind of like...
Yeah, it's a little... I feel strange just because, the hustle for the work thing, not having something on the calendar is always like... but right now, everything's all right, and I'm trying to get used to having a month.
Yeah.
And I've got this studio room I've been working on, and these instruments I've been building that I really want to start diving deeper into. So...
Yeah, so you build your own. You build your own instruments.
Yeah, there's this bike thing I built in 2012. A lot of stuff's got a lot of Keplinger things attached to it. So him and I started hanging out in 2004 when I first moved here. And he's always he's inspiring to hang out with, and he's always just making so much cool stuff.
It was like the other day we were at the shop, and you literally had what looked like a pyramid that had like tongues for like a tongue drum in it.
Yeah, there's like he would always just hand me all these things and just be like, "Hey man, here, try this out, just check it out, whatever." And so I kind of amassed a box of random stuff, and this instrument was kind of the idea of when I built it at the beginning, was to kind of take some of his stuff and see if I could make something with the things he made.
Wow. An instrument on an instrument.
Yeah.
That's really rad.
So
I didn't realize that was kind of the process behind making it, but like even the rototoms, it's like he made the things.
Yeah.
So it's like
totally.
even taking some of those elements and now turning it into your own thing. And
yeah.
You did a whole album with just like the basis is that instrument, right?
Yeah, I've done 2. There's like a solo improv kind of record that it was mostly all recorded in 4 days.
Wow.
In 2 different sessions. Some of the pieces sound really improv and some of them sound kind of composed, but it was all just in the studio on the floor. That one was a couple years ago, and then I did the split with Dave Bazan for a cool label called 15 Passenger. And that was really rad. And that was a similar vibe. It was like 2 days.
Well, you said you did some of this on like a 4-track. You said about 60%, more than half the record.
Yeah, probably half of it or a little more was done on that Marantz 4-track, which just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like a lot of loops and weird stuff I had just done in the evenings at home. And then brought that stuff to the studio. We kind of dumped it in, and then just kind of went over the top of it. I had my friend Neil come and play saxophone over some stuff that sounded really, really cool.
I loved the Split record.
Oh, right.
I thought it was really, really cool.
Cool, man. Thank you.
And that's not the only music you're working on. So you have a 4-year-old son,
Yep.
Henry. Henry's a solo artist at 4 years old.
Yeah. He's really into music.
It was amazing. So we were like listening to some of the songs that you'd worked on, like songs that he had conceived.
Yeah.
And is that some of that? Have you been working on that the last month too? Like this is some time with him, and
Yeah. So this whole room has been kind of my obsession to put together over the last maybe 6 months or so, and it kind of just came together where there's a new interface, new plugins, a bunch of new gear, new microphones, and I have him a couple days a week here while my wife works. So in an attempt to learn how to use a lot of the new gear, I just started handing him things and was like, hey, record some stuff. And you know, he's having a blast. And then we just started making songs.
Well, and at 4 years old, he already has that acute sense of rhythm.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It's wild. And then like, what was the two made up words, that song?
There's one that he calls Ertz and Albidoo.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. And it was he took some videos of himself kind of rambling on the iPad, and then was messing with it one day in the morning, and I was sitting at the breakfast table, like hadn't even had coffee yet. And he runs up and he's like, Dad, it sounds like music. And I'm like looking, and he had trimmed a video to like saying Ertz and Albidoo, himself saying it over and over again, and was playing it. He's like, Ertz and Albidoo, Ertz and Albidoo. And he's like, can we put it in the computer and make a song? I'm like, yes. So
does that take up almost like a whole day, just kind of sitting in here?
Yeah,
with
we
him
just mess around. And like, you know, I had some new microphones I wanted to try. And I was like, hey, go get a bunch of your toys that make sound. And so we set up like a bunch of dominoes and recorded them in stereo. And he's having a ton of fun. And I'm actually learning some new gear, and we're making music, and it's super fun.
And talk about like an interesting way to create a memory. You know,
Totally.
like I mean, you think of like when we were kids, you know, most parents had a film camera.
Yeah.
And then, you know, into the 90s, all the parents had the big VHS cameras, and people have their cell phones now, which is what everybody does. But it's like to sit down and literally create something that's this moment in time with your son is like so rad.
It's amazing. It's really, really fun. And he has trouble with certain things. Like he has a lot of energy.
Very high energy,
very, very, very high energy, and he's a handful for sure. And he's been like that since birth, basically. Like we used to swaddle him when he was an infant, and he would be like, you know, it just started right away.
Wow.
But music, especially music with like a really strong quarter note, eighth note pulse, like he just focuses
in the zone
and just totally calms down. I noticed that early when he was in his bouncy chair, and he'd put his right foot up and he'd just bounce it to the Beatles, like before he could walk.
Wow.
And it would always be in time. But I was doing that thing where I was like, oh, I'm a drummer and he's my kid. He's got great time, you know. And then I had a drummer friend over, and I was like, can I show you something? Is this actually happening? You know, and put the record on. He's like, whoa. And then he would end when the song would end, like on the beat.
Yeah.
And so he's just been doing that stuff.
And he understands. He understands like not only rhythm but form.
Like he has arrangement ideas, and he wants me to edit things and move stuff around, and it's really cool.
And remembering fills, like fills, or
he can
certain,
air drum
like,
all the things he did, and
to a T.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's so bizarre. Like that kid, that is your kid. Like he is going to be a music maker. Man.
Totally. Yeah.
I really dig that.
Yep.
So, you generally, I think, is most of your work live work?
I do a lot of studio stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly just all in Seattle.
Yeah.
I've been playing on records and doing sessions up there for about 5 years,
Yeah.
mostly. I started as a drum tech. Kepi actually got me hooked up doing some teching gigs. He used to take me along
Oh, really?
to his tech gigs. And when I was young, and when I was like 20, 24 years old, 25, and I kind of watched how that all went down, and he was so gracious to just share all of that. You know, that's his vibe. He's always trying to inform the next generation of and help everybody he can.
Even at the drum show, it was like we sat down for like over an hour and just talked about life, because I was debating quitting my job back then. It didn't happen for 3-4 more years, but it was like, to get that knowledge then was just like, whoa.
Yep.
Like, such a good dude.
Yep. Yeah, he's a big part of a lot of things that I ended up doing. Studio work, tech stuff, because a lot of the tech gigs turned into playing gigs. And then I started getting hired to play more than tech.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll tack and rent drums and play percussion on somebody's record. It's like, you just got to do it all if you want to pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the longer this goes along, it's like, because, generally player, builder, and now it's like, all right, really deep diving into the recording thing. And even like next steps, you're thinking of like, well, I think my instruments and that end of your playing, you think would lend itself to like scoring. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So where did that idea come from, and like where do you want to take it, and how do you want to take it there?
Well, the whole bike instrument and all that stuff, it was more like, it was almost like sounds I had heard in my head, especially with the string.
Yeah.
Since I was young, I really liked the sound of cellos, drones, things like that, and that was so not drums.
Yeah.
So I was playing drums forever, but I always heard these kind of like stretched out drones and things that didn't have frets, and so when I stumbled on that instrument, it was basically the one string that started to satisfy those sounds, getting them out of my head, and then that really sounds like movies, kind of already.
Yeah.
So I've done a couple short films, and there was a documentary recently made about David Bazan, the singer for Pedro, and he recommended to the director that I might be able to do some of the music, and so I sent him a bunch of random just went through the hard drive, and he ended up using a lot of it.
Wow.
And then I did some live stuff over the film, as it was, it was a couple years.
Wow.
Like from when I'd sent the first stuff till it was done. And then it just premiered at South by Southwest. It was mixed at Skywalker.
Yeah.
Which, to like your homemade bike instrument, which I recorded a majority of that score on the 4-track also, and then was mixed at Skywalker.
Yeah, like just a giant studio.
Yeah, and we were playing South by randomly, so we got to go see the premiere. And so I got to hear that thing like in surround in a big movie theater, and that was, now I want to just do that.
That feeling is, I mean, like I remember I was telling this story to someone the other night, was the first time I heard my work out there.
Yeah.
So I did a Disney show for the Tokyo Park, and somebody posted a YouTube video or something. It was like 15 minutes of classic Disney songs, like pop and hip hopified. And I hear my drums come in. I'm like, those are drums that I recorded in my mom's basement in Wisconsin. Now like, in a multi-million-dollar Disney show. Like, it's just like, but that felt so good.
Yeah,
like,
it's like you're getting away with something.
It's totally though, and so funny. So, you see this kind of experimenting now, putting it out there and seeing what happens.
Yeah, that was a couple things that I've done. They've worked in a way that I don't have a lot of experience scoring like traditional, but I've been making music my whole life.
Yeah.
And also just to use an instrument you made. There's no rules or reference for for like, is this supposed to be like this
Is
or
it
whatever?
right or
So
wrong?
it was
Yeah.
basically just like, now that I've tried it a few times and it's seeming to go pretty well, it's like, I mean,
Game on.
yeah, it would be really fun. And so yeah, so I built this room, and that's kind of the plan.
Wow.
So yeah, I want to do like percussion for people, drum stuff from here, film stuff, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever I can do that seems like it would work.
Yeah.
And
And
I mean,
think
that's like the goal.
what's so amazing now is like we're in a place where you can literally set up a small room like this, and either with plugins, or my thing is, you know, even though this is a small room, leave the door open, put a mic in the living room. You can make a small room like this
Totally.
sound great.
Yep.
If you know how to tune drums
Yep.
and how to mic drums and stuff, and that opens up
Yep.
literally the whole world as, you know, this group of people that you can work with. You can literally work with anyone from anywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Have you worked with anybody like internationally now, or
No,
like?
it's
So-
all just been in studios basically. So I haven't done a whole lot of remote. I've done some remote stuff on like some bike and percussion on some people's records a few times, but yeah, it's just there's a couple producers that hire me kind of regularly,
Yeah.
and that's where a lot of my work comes from up there. And yeah, it's a hustle. It's just
Yeah.
all of it.
And then the live end too. So you've done live dates with Pedro, and have you done live dates with? I mean, obviously Silver Torches, but Perfume Genius. Yeah,
Yep.
you were working with that group, right?
Yeah, I did. I was kind of there. They used to live in Seattle. So their band members, the bass guitar guy and the drummer, live in France.
Oh wow.
And so since like 2012, I'd done a handful of like subs because whenever they do one-offs or we're between record cycles, some festivals and stuff like that, it doesn't make sense to fly the band members.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how I did a lot of that. But I actually got to use the bike.
Really?
Yeah, it fit really good with their music, and so I had that on the kit live, and I built a mini one that I could put in a case and take on a plane.
Dude.
And so, I mean, that's definitely been another thing that's really fun about that instrument. I've been able to play it through some big PAs, like maybe 15 times or so, and
I feel like that's got to be just as rewarding,
It's
like
insane.
doing that live. It's like I made this, and now I'm showing it to the world.
and the sound
like,
guys are always really scared that I'm gonna blow up their PA, and it's just a freak thing. Like I think it's just the cheap contact mic that's on there. That was just the random one that I put on first. It doesn't have a really wide range of frequencies that it picks up, so it doesn't feed back.
Wow.
And I haven't had any problems with it. And I have like a mute switch, like, and
Sure.
stuff next to, in case anything goes crazy, I can turn it off real quick while I'm playing. But it's really fun.
What is it like now? Like, I mean, doing the live stuff and going all over, being a parent with a child who's at an age where they know when you are gone.
Totally.
What is that like?
It's so far, at least the situation I'm in now has been okay.
Yeah.
Pedro has a set touring schedule. Dave also has 2 kids. He toured more than anybody for the longest time, and so kind of the idea of bringing Pedro back was to sell more tickets so the shows could be bigger.
Yeah.
And the money could be better, and then he could tour less for the same amount of money. That was like part of the thing. And so that's been going well. The last we've been playing together for 2 years, I think 2.5. And so there's 3.5 week tour chunks, and then there's 2 months off.
Oh wow.
3.5 weeks out, 2 months off, 3.5. It just goes like that.
That seems a lot more manageable than a normal like record cycle.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the biggest problems I was having was finding a gig in the middle. Like, how do you even find that? You know, it's either people can't afford to pay you enough to be worth leaving my family for.
Yeah.
Or if the people who can pay you that, you're at the whim of whenever they need to go.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if they're a band that's happening at the moment or whatever, they need to capitalize. They could just tour for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people do that, but and so I don't know. I felt lucky to kind of find this middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to work the entire time I'm not on tour.
Yeah.
In the in betweens.
So that's finding these things,
So,
like working at a little music store
Yep.
a couple times a week or one time a week, and doing teching gigs, I assume, while
Yep.
you're home, and any other
I rent
session.
drums and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just anything.
It's like we talked about, is it's like finding these different pieces of the puzzle that
Yeah.
complete making enough money to live a
Yeah.
decent little life.
Well, and the cool thing is those puzzles and the creative process too are when that started to come together about 5 years ago, I started realizing that they were all kind of working together.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'd be teching on a session. Every time you tech, you work with a different producer, different drummer, different band. They want different things in a different room, different gear.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that whole, you're learning.
Yeah.
And none of them are the same.
Right.
So I learned something new every time. And I just kind of map away things that would work. And so when I'm on my own sessions, you know, oh, this worked last time I was here.
Yeah.
And it just makes everything quicker, and you're just learning.
Yeah.
So every time I would play, I'd get an idea for teching, and every time I would tech, I would get new ideas for playing.
Yeah. So you're just growing your overall skill set to become just a stronger.
Trying really weird overdub days where I'm bringing all these homemade instruments and stuff, and then hearing it over the record, and then they solo it, and it sounds like a movie, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna use, you know, and it's
So that's where that kind of idea started.
like all this stuff, and I'm just trying to kind of keep it all relating to itself, you know?
Yeah.
Because part of the problem is, you know, when I was really young, I worked at a drum shop.
Yeah.
So people come in and they're like, do you even play drums? You know?
Yeah.
Like, because you're just retail.
Yeah.
Like, that's the vibe. And so I was a drum shop employee, but I wasn't a drummer. Then I was a tech, so you don't play, you tech, you know? And then I made these instruments, and a bunch of drummers wanted to buy them. And that was kind of intense at first. Some of my heroes wanted me to make them for them, and that I decided not to.
Wow.
Which was kind of crazy.
What prompted the no?
It's the same vibe, whereas like if I start making these things for people, I will be
A builder.
Yeah. And not a musician.
Wow.
And it didn't seem. Also, I got really attached to the things that I made. Not that I don't want to share them or whatever, but it's like there's this place that I can go to with this stuff that feels like me.
Yeah, it's always you.
And it's my creative kind of process, and I don't feel like I've even scratched the surface of what I can do with these things yet. So to kind of just put them all out in the world, and then it just felt like it was gonna get away from me too fast. Or if I, you know, a lot of people also who wanted some of this stuff, they already have huge careers and are doing all this stuff. And if this is like one little thing that's a niche for me or something, get me some extra gigs on the side, I don't want to give that up either.
Yeah. I understand that.
You know,
because capitalism.
Yeah, this is how it works. So yeah,
man.
A lot of stuff, but
that's wild.
Yeah.
Had you consoled or talked with Gregg about that when those things had happened? And
yeah. I talked to a bunch of people. I asked a bunch of people what they thought. You know, should I sell it? And it was just 50-50 split. Like, oh yeah, totally sell those things. You're gonna make a bunch of money. Yeah. And then a lot of people are like, don't sell it. My wife, she's like, don't sell it.
And what was her reasoning?
Same kind of thing.
Thing.
She's like, no, that like this is your thing. Like this is your music. It's like you're kind of selling. You know, it didn't feel right.
How long have you been with your wife now?
We got married when I was 24 years old. Wow. I'll be 38 in July.
So you guys are doing pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, we met when I was 20 years old.
Wow.
In my hometown, in California.
Yeah.
And even back then, I was playing a lot of music, and I kind of had this idea that I would, join a band and tour forever and sleep on people's couches, and I'm never gonna get married or like any of that kind of stuff. And then I met her, and it just changed.
Yeah.
Immediately. And I never thought I would get married that young, but
Yeah.
it was the right thing, and it's fine. Like,
I mean, and that's kind of where I was going.
great,
Is
yeah.
It's like in that moment with the bike,
Yeah.
and then throughout literally a whole playing career now,
Mm-hmm.
over the last 20 years ish, she seems to have been like super supportive of
Totally.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how do you think that, like, how do you see, what are the ways in which you feel like she supports you in this, and like how does that affect you?
Well, so since the touring has been happening a lot more, it's not necessarily, well, it's definitely supportive, but I have to just throw it out there that she takes a big hit while I'm gone. 'Cause she works 4 days a week from home.
Yeah.
And watches Henry at the same time while working.
Wow.
For 3.5 weeks while I'm gone, which is insane.
Yeah.
But it's paying our bills, and she's great. She's just an incredibly hard worker, in a very, very good mother.
Yeah.
And she kind of is like the rock that keeps the thing solid.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna do this thing. And it's been really good. I'm extremely fortunate that we met, and I would not change that at all. The whatever random things you think you're gonna do when you're a kid, I missed out on. I'm getting to do everything that I wanted to do because we met. Is kind of how it feels. So
yeah. Wow.
yeah, I learned a lot from her when we met, just
Really?
in general about life and how to be a better person.
Was she on the path to? She's an accountant.
Yeah, she works. She does like books and stuff for like a production company that does like TV and film kind of commercials and stuff like that.
And was that always the path that she was on?
She just worked, I think.
Yeah.
She just kind of always had a job since she was 15.
Yeah.
So
I was the same way, and then
yeah.
finally decided now it's almost like I was trying to do her path, and now I'm trying to do your path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Splitting it up. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just always interesting to hear the dynamic between couples and how they make it work. And
Totally.
like even last night, I was talking to a dude who he works full time, and then they have 4 kids. Yeah, a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So to make that work, his wife doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Does the homeschooling for the kids, basically runs the whole show.
Yeah.
But then also he's a creative, he's a drummer, but she's a creative too, and she's out there doing dance, like at nights doing shows, and like, so it's just interesting to hear how people
works.
make it work.
Yeah.
Well, and this seems like a new chapter for you too.
Yeah, it's
like
all
the whole,
new.
it's all new.
So
I guess people, I don't know who I was talking to, but people like to think of musicians' lives in like phases too. So like, it's almost like a new phase, and
yep.
you figure it out and know that it'll come to an end, and then you'll just have something else, and the dynamic will change and be better. And
well, like one of the crazy things was when we found out we were having Henry, I kind of flipped out, and I was like, oh, I got to get a real job, and I can't be doing this music. So it's not going to work, and like all this stuff. And I tried different things, and it felt insane. Like, I mean, I just couldn't do it. Like, I wasn't doing a good job. And then since he was born, so many of the things with music that I was trying to kind of make happen before happened. And you could look at that and be like, oh man, timing, but I think it happened because that was I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I thought about other career paths, realized that really wasn't for me, realized I had been working towards this music thing for so long,
Yeah.
that why would I just
Let it go.
abandon it? Because I had experience with it.
Yeah.
Like when people were asking me to do things, I could do it. And when I went to try these other jobs, I'm like, I don't know how to do it. And that
Right.
was just crazy to feel.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I do know how to do this. So then I thought, well, I'll just push harder than I've ever pushed before. And not be worried or scared about not working out and kind of that stuff. And it worked. Yeah. So it's like, again, it's like the same thing. It was like, you have these ideas of how you think things are going to go.
Yeah.
You know, since you're young or whatever, and then there's the way that they do go,
Yeah.
and the things that you want can happen. They just don't happen the way that you thought or whatever.
Right.
You know, different motivations even.
So like in 5 years, we're gonna see your music on a Star Wars movie.
I don't know. Who knows? That would be cool.
That would be rad.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about just doing things with music.
Yeah.
In general, it's just kind of always everything I've always just done music. So
Yeah.
I found out in my mid-20s that I was basically dyslexic, and school was extremely difficult. I didn't even graduate high school.
Really?
No. I got a GED eventually, but yeah, it was a lot of problems because it was the 80s, and basically you were just the bad kid that wasn't paying attention.
There weren't resources there or anything. Yeah.
And so that, in a weird way, kind of steered me towards music. Also because I played trumpet in 4th grade, and I couldn't read music. But if I heard the song that I was supposed to play a couple times, I could memorize it. And so I would mark the music with just the letters. And I knew I could memorize the fingerings, but I couldn't count the beats or read the music. But if I put the letters, so I just sit down and, you know, every good boy does, and put the letters on and just mark it all out. And I'd put it up, and then as soon as I'd hear like the first couple notes, I knew where I was, and I could just play the piece of music.
So you'd write down the letters, but you would memorize the rhythms.
All the rhythms and stuff like that. Yeah.
I would guess that's a part of where drumming came in then.
Yeah, totally. And that would just happen. And the coolest part was, you know, that's not what you're supposed to do in school when you're learning, you know, teachers, like, you know, you need to learn to read the music or whatever. Yeah. And I had a band teacher that saw that I had a strength in my own way, even though I couldn't do, and he just let me do it the way that it worked for me.
Yeah.
And no other teacher in school was doing that in any class for any part of it.
Yeah. Just finally someone taking you under their wing.
Yeah, or just being like,
accepting,
accepting like how I'm learning.
Yeah.
And, you know, even that time, I didn't know that. I just knew that it felt good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so I can do this and it makes sense and you're okay with it. And so that was just, that's when it clicked. And so that was when music kind of took over, you know, that was when I was like 10.
Wow.
And so that took over everything else because of that vibe.
Yeah.
Because I had kind of found a place where I wasn't looking at things and they weren't looking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So
did you start playing in bands, like rock bands or whatever?
I played trumpet from 4th to 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then the summer between 8th and 9th grade, I had a friend that wanted to play guitar and a friend that wanted to play bass.
Yeah.
And I was always banging on the table or whatever. And I was like, I'll play drums.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of it. So.
And then that's where it all started.
Yeah. And my dad, you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So if I showed interest in something, I had to kind of prove my interest in it before he was going to spend any money on it. which I'm also very grateful for that experience, because the hunger and the wanting to do something came from that. But so I made a drum kit
Are you serious?
out of cardboard boxes, and a coffee can. I was 13. A coffee can. I put marbles in it and put duct tape over the top, and it rattled. And then there was actually a drum shop in the county that I grew up in that I ended up working at later. And I would get all the pamphlets for the gear and just look at it. And so I copied a Tama foot pedal out of wood and rubber bands
Oh my God.
to hit the box. And then I had a music stand from when I was playing trumpet.
Yeah.
And it looked kind of like a hi-hat stand. And so we used to shoot bow and arrows at hay bales outside. There was just like all this random stuff. It was basically was in my room. There was an arrow in the closet, and I ripped the feather things off or whatever. And I shoved it through the middle of the music stand.
Yeah.
And then there was these hi-hat cymbals that I actually found in the trunk of an abandoned car by the railroad tracks. Like a couple years before, there were Avanti, like silver colored cymbals that were like starter cymbals that were made in Germany, and one of them was cracked, and they were in the closet. So I put the bottom cymbal on the music stand and then stuffed the arrow through it and then taped the arrow to the top cymbal and then would rest it on my shoe. And so if you push the arrow up, it would just lift like that. And I played to Super Unknown on that cardboard box kit for like 6 months. Like My Wave was the first song I ever learned. It's in like 5 or whatever. And I then did boo ga boo boo ga boo ga boo boo, doing that. Maybe 3-4 months I did that. And it was kind of like my parents saw my enthusiasm for it, and they're like, okay.
If you're literally going to build a drum set, we better get one for you.
So,
like, holy moly.
Yeah, there was, I guess that's funny because I made the bike.
That's where, I'm sure that's where it comes from, dude. Ingenuity.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you just want to do something so bad, and like, you just find a way to do it,
Wow. So what? Why did that even start? Was that just finding your voice and then the cello thing?
Well, I had all the Kepi bells, and then I had made a single string instrument. I was working at the music store. I guess that's kind of where it started. Sundays were slow.
Yeah.
I worked in a drum department, but there was actually like repair shops and stuff for all kinds of instruments. So there's just like parts and random bins of things laying around, and they didn't care if I messed with stuff. And there was people I could ask about how wiring up a pickup works and stuff like, And so I had made a single string instrument that you just bowed, and that was kind of like that first drone thing, and it just ran through like a delay pedal, and it sounded weird, and I couldn't keep it in tune, but it sounded neat and just make strange sounds. And then I had the bells and some other percussion. I had used rototom spokes, like hitting them like bells and stuff. And the singer of a band I was in was building bikes at his house. And I was eating lunch. We were hanging out, eating food, and there was a bike frame flipped sideways on the ground, on the floor.
Yeah.
And I looked down at it, and I was like, oh, I could put the string instrument just like right in that bar, and then I could put those bells on that thing. And I thought of it as just like a weird holder for a bunch of percussion, and then we'll put some microphones on it or something.
Yeah.
But then there was a contact mic at the shop, and we had that big like Boss pedal display.
Yeah, yep.
With like
every
all
single
the
effects
pedals.
pedal. Yeah.
So when I got it done, I hooked up the contact mic, and I was like, oh, and I plugged it into like 30 effects pedals, and it was just like made all this, and I was like, this actually sounds kind of good. And the first one was on a big aluminum bike frame. It was like this big.
Yeah.
And I actually played it solo a few times and took it out, but it was so, I'm like showing up to venues with like a
It's a
giant
beast.
like bike, and people like, so that after that I had the idea to put them on kids' bikes frames so I could actually move it around and also put it on the side of the kit and stuff.
That's wild.
So yeah, it was just
The,
random.
it seems like the trajectory. It's like once you, we know where you are, and then to have heard where you came from, it's like, all right, he
Yeah.
built a drum set.
Yeah.
That's where this comes from.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just like
It
figuring
just
it
sounds. I just like sounds. Like
Yeah.
everything sounds like music to me. Like I'd turn static on in the car and roll the window down and turn the blinker on and listen to it. You know, like how things interact and never being picky about sound either. Like I used to be so obsessed with drum tuning and like no hole in the front of the kick drum and everything had to be natural and perfect and then I started realizing, well, that only works like 10% of the time. And if I want to play gigs, I should probably not get in a fight with the sound guy.
Yeah, that helps.
And cut a hole in the kick drum. And as I got older, I realized I just don't think there's anything that sounds bad anymore. It's just like whatever fits the thing you're working towards.
Yeah.
Play the table, scrape the wall. Like, just, I don't know. I'm constantly messing with stuff now. So.
And you can hear that. You can hear that philosophy even in then your son's music too. It's like, that's it.
Yeah.
Use the iPad video.
Yeah.
Knock the dominoes down.
Over.
Yeah. Like, oh.
Have fun.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
That's why we started doing this.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
I think it's good to keep that in mind because I think a lot of people, particularly people who that's all they do is play music, I think they forget that.
Yeah. And I don't ever want to lose that motivation for building a cardboard box drum kit.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what would happen. And I've been in situations where I've gotten jaded and listened to music and that's a guitar. That's, we've all, and the kind of the exploration of not knowing what it's going to do.
Yeah.
So like plugging this instrument and playing it for a couple of years, I still mess with it and I don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which puts you in a constant state of listening, which is, for me, a much better place to be in musically always. Because if I know what I'm doing, then you have that other part of your brain that turns on that kind of can take over.
Yeah.
That knows what it's doing.
The zone.
Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you don't know, you're just reacting. It's much more intuitive. And for me, it's easier to make decisions in those kind of environments, I think, maybe because of the way my brain works, because a lot of normal learning didn't make sense, so I was using intuition to kind of get through the day.
Wow.
This is all random, but
no, I dig it.
It's been a really since having a child too and seeing that he has a lot of the similar things going on has been really crazy.
So you see a lot of yourself in him.
I guess that's what is supposed to happen. Also, like, I see an opportunity to help. Like, my parents did great, but they didn't know that stuff was happening. Like I said, it was the 80s and nobody knew, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, that's another reason kind of why we do music is just, it seems like it focuses him, it helps him. So if I can get him focused and paying attention, then I can use those moments to teach other things that he needs to learn how to do. Yeah. Because he's got this thing kind of keeping him. Anyway, so I don't know. It's been a long period of self-discovery lately.
Yeah.
And bought a house.
Yeah.
And so
that's wild.
Things are good.
That's great. That's so good. So what's next then? Now you're at home for at least a little while longer. Do you have anything on the horizon?
We have Pedro has a tour in May.
Yeah.
It's the East Coast, about 3 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. We'll do some rehearsals for that. And I have a bunch of ideas for other instruments I'm going to build. My friend gave me a drill press.
Ooh!
So I can actually build stuff here. And I want to make a record. The third one.
Yeah.
And I want to look at, so So like next year, we're not doing a lot of Pedro tour. So I was thinking about, putting out a record of solo bike weird stuff and finding some bands to open for, and maybe go out and do some of my own open slots, doing short runs or whatever a couple times next year.
Be cool.
So and just see that would be great. So yeah.
So if people want to find out more about you and want to follow your whole life, where do they find you?
Just Instagram and
Sean T Lane on Instagram.
Sean T Lane, and then there's an old website up there somewhere
on the internet.
Same thing. Yeah, the internet.
Yeah. Awesome. So, well, dude, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, sitting here with Henry, showing me Henry's music, and just like letting me into your home, man. This was awesome.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, we'll catch you next time with another Seattle show featuring the other drum dude from Trading Musician, Remi.
Yep.
So, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.